Good morning. Today I'd like to reflect with you on the Gospel for the Saturday of the third week of Lent. It's taken from St. Luke. Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee and the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. "O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I pay tithes on my whole income." But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast and prayed, "O God, be merciful to me, a sinner." I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. In this Gospel, we have a clear choice of what type of disciple we want to be and what type of church do we want to be. Do we want to be one that is self-referential, or do we want to be one that goes forth in the power and in the mercy of God? In the parable, the Pharisee talks only about what he has done. He fasts twice a week. He pays his tithes. He also compares himself to everyone else. He thanks God that he is not like the rest of sinful humanity, greedy and dishonest and adulterous, or even like the tax collector. But his prayer, other than saying, "O God," is not really God-directed. He talks only about himself and what he has done and how he is better than everyone else. And sometimes we, who are religious people who come to church all the time, can do the same. We can fall into self-referentiality or judgmentalness of others. On the other hand, we could be more like the tax collector. St. Anthony of Padua says, he defines humility by saying that a man is what he is before God, and nothing more. The tax collector goes into the temple, into the presence of God, and he knows exactly what he is. He's a sinner. He has taken money from his own people and given it to the Roman oppressors. And yet, he does not see himself as being justified by his own actions, as the Pharisee did. The Pharisee didn't really have any need from God because he did everything right. Whereas the tax collector knows that he cannot save himself. He cannot make himself righteous. He needs God's mercy. He needs God's forgiveness. He sits at the back of the temple. He can't raise his eyes to heaven. He beats his breast and makes a beautiful prayer. "O God, be merciful to me, a sinner." God will grant mercy to those who are truly sorry for their sins and want to make a new way forward, want to take the new way forward, change their lives. Jesus says, only one man went home from the temple justified, and it was not the Pharisee. It was the tax collector. His prayer for mercy marked the beginning of a new life of goodness. The Pharisee was in clear relationship with God despite his own wickedness in the past. He knew that God was the source of mercy and of love and could restore him. And so indeed, God did. What do we want out of this Lent? Do we think that we are justified by our own actions? Do we think that we are perfect people? Or rather, can we acknowledge who we are before God? Earlier in St. Luke's Gospel, in the 5th chapter, after the great miracle of the catch of fish, St. Peter threw himself at Jesus' feet, and he said, Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man." But Jesus gazed upon him and said to him, "From now on, I will make you fisher of men." Indeed, Jesus would refuse to depart from Peter. He saw Peter's weakness, his fragility, his sinfulness, and yet he also saw with the gaze of mercy Peter's great potential. So also the Lord gazes upon us and longs for us to return home, to strike our breasts and say, "Be merciful to me, a sinner." Our God is just, but he is also generous. He is generous in his mercy. Let us turn to him once more on this Lenten day and beseech his mercy for the church, the world, and in these days, especially for the sick. May God bless you and your day.